anything in your hand, anytime that you're clenched, that immediately sends signals that you're nervous, that you're uncomfortable, and then that's going to lower your credibility, your status, your authority. And so you really want to be able to focus on like relaxing, having open hands, open postures. And yeah, it makes the audience wonder like, hey, I'm sitting here listening to you because you have something to share with me, but you're sending the signal that you actually maybe don't know as much about what you're talking about as you really do. And oftentimes like scripts, note cards, outlines, like these tools that we bring up onto stage really become a crutch,
Hmm.
right? There's sometimes that people do, they haven't had as much time to prepare as they want. Like they really do need those in order to get through everything. But I always see speakers are so hesitant once they've been using them to leave them behind, even if they don't actually need them.
I feel like your audience, whether it's an investor, whether it's at a conference, will give you some level of grace when it comes
Mhm.
to your nervousness, but they tend
Mhm.
to do it at the beginning when you first start talking. If and then it catches up with you. Like so, if you if you're still nervous halfway through it, people are gonna think that there's something actually wrong, or like you said, you kind of lose
Mhm.
credibility fast in the middle of what you're saying. How can a person calm down if they kind of spiral? So sometimes like giving a presentation is kind of like the stock market, right? Where like you hit your intro, you're feeling good, you have a rhythm, you blank out for a second, and then the shakes start happening. How does a person recenter themselves to keep delivering the message?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with what you said in terms of the audience. Like the audience wants to like you, right? Nobody wants to watch a speaker who's horribly uncomfortable or does a terrible job. Everybody is rooting for
Right.
you. They're on your side.
Yeah.
And so yeah, absolutely right. Like we already talked about, really knowing exactly your first opening like 30 seconds even, and
Mm-hmm.
having that totally in your blood, totally internalized, even memorized, because that's when you're going to be at your peak nervousness. Is that first moment walking out onto stage, and that's where you're most likely to experience, right, like a brain freeze or just totally blank out. And so definitely remember memorizing that opening. And then obviously a lot of practice, right? The more that you actually practice and run through your presentation, you can isolate specific parts. If you know that, okay, I've got my opening down, but this transition halfway through, that's been a sticking point.
Mm.
Practice that more than you practice the overall speech. And then the biggest thing to really control our psychosomatic responses, right,
Mm-hmm.
is breathing. And
Yeah.
oftentimes when we're nervous, we talk faster, we stop pausing.
Right.
And those pauses are opportunities to get breath, which allows our body to relax, right? If you're kicking into fight or flight mode, the breath is what's going to help you calm down. And often speakers don't realize that you can pause for a pretty long time before your audience starts to wonder what's going on, right? You
Mm.
can pause for 3 or 5 seconds, which is long enough for you to get your body back under control, get your notes back in order, but not long enough for your audience to almost even notice.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. Very fascinating. 3 to 5 seconds.
Mhm.
I never even knew that, but it makes sense. Especially there, sometimes there are people out there that use pregnant pauses to make a point, right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes
Mhm.
silence makes just as much of a point as the words that you're saying. I
Mhm.
think that's very smart. As a business owner presenting to a crowd, even if you're not a business owner, if you're presenting to a crowd and you're presenting to someone that makes you nervous, what I found
Mhm.
useful for me is measuring the room visually prior to the speech happening. So sometimes
Mhm.
if you walk out and you're shocked at the size of the arena or the room that you're speaking in, that can kind of trip you out, right? And
Mhm.
I find that like going in and kind of getting a measure of the room from the stage before people are sitting there, it's helped me to just kind of draw a frame, like a room around the room within the room, so I can kind of like know the unknown, which is how many people are going to be staring at me, how close is the front
Mhm.
row, can I see their faces, stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Anytime if you can get the chance to walk out onto stage before the room is filled, right? If there's like a sound check, these different things, that is huge so that you actually get that. And you can do that 5 times, right? Just
Mm.
walking out, pause. We always love to say, like, do a power pause at the very beginning, right? Like, draw in that attention with the silence, like you said.
Mm.
So walk out, do your pause, deliver your first line, and then stop. Go back, do that 5 times. And you'll feel a lot more comfortable when you walk out and it's filled with people.
Yeah, brilliant. I like that. And so, how do you recover from a mistake that you know that you made, but the audience didn't know that you made?
Yeah, absolutely. First thing, never apologize. Never, ever. Even if it's obvious to the audience that you made a mistake, do not apologize from the stage, right? Unless you actually like set somebody on fire or something, right? You just don't apologize. You just have to push
Right.
through it, right? And I think that, again, like pauses are just such a useful tool to a
Mhm.
speaker, which is when you realize, like, oh, I forgot to say this thing 30 seconds ago. And now how am I going to connect to the next point that I want to make?
Mhm.
Using those pauses can help you give your brain enough time to figure out where to go next. And then also I love to encourage people, right? When we're writing, like a lot of folks that we work with are really excellent, like great writers, and they love
Mhm.
their, really skilled. That's where they're strongest. And when we're writing, we have this feeling like we have to have these beautiful transitions. Like my essay has to flow very cleanly from A to B to C. When we're speaking, the audience doesn't need that, right? We can make
Mhm.
a very hard buzz with transition, right? So if you're talking about something over here and you're like, oh, I've totally lost like my smooth, beautiful connection into this next idea, you can just stop and then start talking about something totally different. Because your audience doesn't have the chance, right? When we're reading, we can go back before and be like, hey, wait, what was that previous paragraph? Like I like got lost here. But when we're speaking, it's just totally in the moment. And so you
Mhm.
can, if you've missed something, if you've made a mistake, you just totally stop and then start talking about something else.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Now, if you were to give us a few pointers, let's say three pointers
Okay.
on how to bring confidence to the stage, like
Mm-hmm.
how to appear confident even if you may not be, what would you say?
Yes. I mean, the number one thing is going to be practice, right? The
Mhm.
more that you practice ahead of time, the more confident you'll be able to show up in on stage, right?
Mhm.
Another two, I would definitely say eye contact is huge when we're looking at the ground all the time or looking up, even looking above our audience, right? That's a common thing that we hear is like look like at the point above their heads.
Right.
And it's still like you're still not giving eye contact, right? And so actually engaging directly with the audience, looking in people's eyes and making sure it's spread, right? If you've got like a long room, you're over here, right? Making sure that you're spreading that out. And
Mhm.
then third would be just what we already talked about, which is like your body language,
Right.
right? So often we cross fingers, we cross our legs, we put our hands in our pockets, we clench, right? We do these different things that just totally signals discomfort. And so the more that you can get rid of that, to be open, having a strong stance, kind of like an athletic stance, like feet hip width apart,
Mhm.
that's going to signal confidence.
So the further away a person gets from their midline, the more confident they probably are in a large room or stage or wherever they are.
Yeah, to a degree, right? If you're not like starfishing or something out there. But
Right.
yeah, I think that that's a great way to think of it. If you're totally right, you want to take up space, right?
Yeah.
You want to own that stage, whether it's a big stage or just like at the board meeting, right? At the front of the table or something.
So, I do business coaching and consulting. I
Mhm.
often speak on business issues, of course. What I found when I first started this, so I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and is that I had to, when I switched lanes from running my own business to trying to help others, I had to create ideas that
Mhm.
were not just blah, 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 marketable, but also had the ability to actually resonate with the audience, right? That I was actually speaking to. How can a person create clarity with the message that they want to get out there so that it actually does resonate? Because otherwise this is 2025. We've heard a lot of ideas, almost all of them. There's
Mhm.
almost no idea that
Mhm.
hasn't been articulated. um, but yet there's some people who repeat ideas that when broken down are just, you know time tested adages that have been around forever, but just repackaged in their own way. How can you bring clarity to those ideas?